In the summer of 2015, I had a bladder infection. And so I just started taking cranberry pills, and those cranberry pills worked. And that's what I've always done. And normally that, eradicates at least the symptoms of the infection, not the infection itself. So anyways, the infection got worse to the point where there was some discomfort, and I thought, I should probably go to the doctor and get this checked out. But the pain was getting worse as the day was progressing, and then the next thing I know, we're in the middle of a store, and I felt like I couldn't walk. I was so unbelievably sore. I was in so much pain. So we went to the doctor, and it was a bladder infection. I was given antibiotics, and that should have been the end of it, right? I started having what I thought were side effects from the medication. And I was really scared because whenever I stood, it felt like my legs couldn't handle my weight, or that my knees were going to give out. And they would shake and all sorts of stuff. And, I'm thinking this is not normal. And I ended up going back to my doctor and saying, I think these are side effects. And I'm really concerned because it's not like I'm having any other symptoms than this, but it's such a weird, discombobulating feeling. And my doctor, who is pretty amazing, said, I don't think it's the medication. I think something else is going on, so we should do some investigating. And I said, okay, so let's do that. So stay on the medication? He said, yes, stay on it, finish it, let it do its due course, unless if there's, symptoms of allergic reaction or something like that, then, come back. Or if the symptoms worsen, come back. That was my cat trouble making. Anyways, then I started noticing more happening. Go get it, Spikey. So I started noticing other things happening. I started, along with the knees and legs feeling weird, I had trouble when I was sitting. Everything's fine. The world is wonderful. But as soon as I stood up, everything went to poo. For instance, all of a sudden, I was losing the ability to hold a shopping cart in front of me. I could walk beside and lean on it or hold it, but I couldn't push it. It was like there was no control. It felt like it was rushing out from under me, and that's a horrible feeling. So then I wasn't able to shop by myself anymore because I couldn't hold a cart. I couldn't push a cart. I couldn't control it. I couldn't maintain my balance. I started, when I was bending over to pick stuff up, I would fall over. And so that got me kind of concerned. And then there was one time that I just barely leaned over and I fell over. So I went back to my doctor, but unfortunately he wasn't practicing that day. It was another doctor, like it's a group of doctors, and it was a different doctor. And he said that it was in my head. That was hard to hear. He said I was just having trouble walking. It felt like my legs weren't my own, or I used to describe it as I feel like I'm a newborn calf and I can't control the way that I walk. And it got to the point where people would look at me really strangely. I couldn't walk in a straight line. I couldn't push a grocery cart. And, that's kind of scary. And then when you go to a doctor and you think that you can trust them because they're there to treat you and help you, and then be told that it's all in my head? What the hell? Like, that was a horrible thing. So I left that doctor's office thinking that I was crazy. And his words were, You can walk, you just don't want to. Seriously? But as long as I'm sitting, I'm okay. And so he tested my reflexes. My reflexes were perfect because I was sitting down. He didn't ask me to walk in front of him. He didn't ask me to stand and do any testing or anything like that. Anyways, I forgot to mention that in the appointment previous to this, my doctor, the good one, was talking about sending a referral for me to have an MRI done. And so when I went back the second time, the other doctor said, there's nothing neurologically wrong with you. It's all in your head. Yeah, thanks. Within a week, things got worse. I started falling over more, and then I fell down my stairs. And the house that I had at the time, we had 4 sets of stairs, and each set was 7 steps. So it's not like it was far, but the steps are hardwood, so it hurt. So I went back, and the lovely doctor that I saw, it wasn't my usual doctor, but a really great doctor, saw me that day. And she looked at me and said, okay, so why didn't you go to the hospital? And I said, because the other doctor said I was crazy, so I didn't think I should go. And then she had me stand up and did some tests, and then she asked me to walk. And so I did. And she said, so you need to go to the emergency room. I went, oh. And she said, you have an ataxic gait and you need to get to the hospital. And I was like, oh. So she wrote a letter for me to give to the triage department. And so I did. We were there for a while, and long story short, they did a CAT scan, and then the emergency room doctor pulled me into a room with my daughter. He was so blunt about it. He was like, yeah, we're 95% positive you have MS. I'm like, what the hell? I walk in and I can't walk and know I have MS? What the hell are you talking about? So I'm like, okay, so there's a 5% chance that I don't have it. But he said that it would be confirmed with an MRI, and that was going to be done the next day. So he said for me to go home. He recommended that I stay in the hospital, but at this point, I just wanted to go home. It's not that I had never heard of MS. I knew what it was, but I definitely wasn't educated on it whatsoever. And, the first thing that came to my mind was, am I going to be like this for the rest of my life? Am I going to lose my license? If I do lose my license, I'll lose my job, because my job requires me to travel throughout the Niagara region to go to meetings, seminars, clients, workshops, to travel to McMaster for client doctor appointments. Like, there's, that's a loss of independence. I don't want to lose that. So that was, that was hell to have that in my mind. And of course my daughter's crying and I don't know how to react. And when my mom picked us up from the hospital, she's crying because, we don't know what to expect. And I thought, am I going to be in a wheelchair for the rest of my life? There's so much going through my head, and I had no idea what to expect, what was going to happen. So the next day I went back for the MRI. The MRI confirmed it is MS, and that's where I met my neurologist. And my neurologist, it was incredible. He was so reassuring. My first question was, am I going to lose my license? And he said, no, it doesn't look that way, because when you're sitting, you fine. You have full motor function, you have full cognitive function. There's nothing inhibiting or prohibiting you from that. But right now we have to treat you. So My first course of action was to be put on prednisone. And at this point, I had to stay in the hospital because they were concerned about me walking. I was in the hospital for 4 days. They expected me to be in there for quite a bit. But the prednisone was incredible, and I have a very strong drive to get better and do things because, you know, with work and being a parent, I'm very busy and I have a lot of stuff to do and I don't have time to be staying in a hospital. So that's the end of part 1. Coming soon, part 2.